Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson. Today I have the beautiful Shalina Warrior, who's a personal friend. She is a successful professional geologist and founder of Truth Minerals, an online shop offering conscious consumers legitimate, locally sourced crystals, rocks, and minerals. And she merged her education, MS and BS in geology, with over 20 years of practice in wellness, metaphysics, and spirituality, as well as her passion for conscious consumerism to help people deepen their connections to the earth and their higher selves while living their best lives. Welcome, Shalina.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me, Wendy.
Of course, of course. I have a little bit of a cold, so if my voice sounds a little froggy or an octave lower, that's why.
It's just your sexy, raspy voice.
That's what it is. I put that one on for this interview.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you how your affinity with rocks, gems, crystals, and minerals started. Was it something that you've always had a passion for, or?
Yeah, totally. For as long as I can remember. When I was a child, my favorite gifts were those sets with the minerals or the fossil sets. When I was a kid, I just wanted to be outside. I grew up in Central Texas in a small town right outside of Austin. And, I just remember sitting outside and like picking up little pieces of limestone, dolostone really, and watching how they sparkled in the sunlight. So it's always just, I think a lot of people start out that way. And, I see my kids and other kids collecting minerals. I think a lot of us are just so in tune with the earth, especially as children. And, being in nature, so many of us as kids just want to play outside, Certainly I was that way. In fact, I remember once, there was a rainstorm and I always just felt really like connected, and I couldn't explain it, but it was like a feeling of, I guess, peace, sort of this spirituality, I think. It was
Sure.
a rainstorm coming in, and my grandparents raised me and they were really super strict. And I ran out to the barn because I just wanted to like be under the barn for this entire rainstorm and like listen to the rain pitter pattering on the aluminum roof and just like be out in it.
How old were you when you did that? How old were you?
I was probably like 8. But my grandmother was so mad. She sent my cousin out and she was like, get her in here right now. So yeah, I think all of us as children, we just know that we belong in nature.
I think you were so connected from the beginning.
I think we all are.
Absolutely. I think it's hard though, because our environment doesn't foster it. Like our childhood environment, because they have their own paradigms and I don't know, family patternings and beliefs and things. And so we're so connected and open, but then over time we kind of shut down.
But then your grandmother chases you in and says, get back in here and don't be outside in a rainstorm. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and that's just like a small example. For sure. I think that as children, like these things aren't really valued so much, our connection. I think I was fortunate in that, I had these hippie aunts and my mom was kind of hippie. And so, right after we had goats, when I was growing up, we had goats. And as soon as we were like weaned off breast milk, it was goat milk. And my grandparents had a big garden. We always had chickens. So I feel really fortunate in that I was connected as a child and I knew like where food came from and had the opportunity to be outside. And I'm trying to do that also for my kids.
Sure.
And so we've got chickens in the backyard and
that's so cool.
Yeah. And so like we take these things after stripping off all the programming, oh, these were the gems. Like this is the good stuff that I want to pass on to my kids.
I love that you're consciously aware of that.
Yeah.
And you're creating that environment for the kids.
Well, it took a while, it wasn't
It's never a straight line, right? It's
wasn't a
always
straight
kind of
line,
this winding road back to ourselves and our truth. And
for sure.
obviously, you felt called to pursue higher education,
Yeah.
go in that direction. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I grew up with my grandparents, and they were Great Depression era folks. My grandfather was the first one in our family on that side, on my mom's side, to go to college and pursue higher education. And he served in World War II, the very tail end of it. And I think it was the GI Bill, that's what it was called at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he came back from World War II, he had the opportunity to, get a college education funded by the government. So he went, and in 2.5 years, got a double major and a double minor in engineering physics for the major and geology economics for the minor. Yeah, my grandmother said that he used to study on their dates. Like they'd go out on dates, but he'd have all his books and he'd be studying.
Oh my God.
But there's also this dynamic, and speaking of family, programming and things like that. I'm a woman, so my grandmother didn't go to college, right? That wasn't a thing. She stayed home. She took care of the home. She took care of the children.
And that's where her value was. So she probably expected that for her children and for you.
Right. Well, for her children, I think things evolved throughout the family. And I'm really thankful that it was kind of opened up and laid out for me. My aunts and mother, being the women of their generation, it was kind of like this expectation that they can go to college and either be teachers or nurses. And so I had 2 aunts that became teachers and my mother became a nurse. And so it was kind of like we're just continually evolving as women. And when it was, my turn, I was kind of looking up, and as a child, like, why can't I do this stuff? Why can't I get a degree in science? Why can't I be successful? How we define success for men. Why can't women step into that space? And
I love that you were having that internal dialogue, and that seed was planted for you, even though it wasn't necessarily fostered, because you were breaking through a glass ceiling there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel really fortunate seeing the evolution, and getting to take my place in it. So
that also gave you a really strong foundation of knowledge for Truth Minerals, right? So what inspired you to start Truth Minerals? Tell me about that journey.
Yeah. So, I started out in college. I took a geology class. At the time, I went in as an undeclared major, which means I have no idea what I want to study. And I was taking all my basics. I took that first geology class, and Wendy, I was like, this is it. When you have a feeling, when there's like divine guidance. That was it. I was like, this is it. I'm going to study this. I'll major in this. This is what I'm going to do.
Just know it inside.
You just know. I just knew that was what I was going to do. And so, I got my bachelor's degree in geology, and it was amazing. For our courses, we were required to take field trips where we would go camping over spring break. Or one of our courses that we had to take in order to graduate was field camp. It was 6 weeks in the summer.
6 weeks.
6
wow.
weeks of walking outside every day, camping, mapping, making geologic maps, studying the rock formations, measuring certain properties about them.
Wow.
Incredible. Yeah. So the whole time, that was home. Like I knew it was right. And I felt it really strong. And then I went on to get my master's degree and pursued a career in industry. And that was amazing. About 10 years in though, I was like, okay, I just kind of knew this isn't really for me anymore. It was kind of a tumultuous.
I think we kind of hit a ceiling when it's time for us to move on.
I think you're right.
Just this inner knowing. There's just like all of a sudden circumstances are kind of pushing you.
Yes.
Kind of go in another direction, but it can be uncomfortable too, because that's what you've known and it's provided a lucrative income. And
yeah, no, you're right. And it's like we can choose to see these things around. So when I
Right.
knew I was leaving. It was 2016.
Mhm.
And the industry that I was in at the time was crashing. And
Mm.
so, kind of right at that time, um, the company that I was at was like passing out severance packages. And so if you chose to leave, or if you were sort of, asked to leave, you would get this layoff, and you'd get they'd give you a bunch of money.
Lucrative, right?
Yeah.
You're like, I'll take it.
This is kind of perfect timing. So yeah, that happened. And then I've done a little bit of consulting still to
Mhm.
stay in
Mhm.
that space. But the way Truth Minerals came up, on the one side, I was pursuing my career,
Mhm.
doing science, finding resources in the earth and helping, I think, people, all of us, by
Mhm.
finding these resources that we all use in our daily lives.
Mhm.
And there was this growing spiritual aspect as well. Starting in college, like how I stumbled on that geology class, I also stumbled on like a different spiritual path. It just so happened that a friend at the time invited me to go and see a speaker. And I was just like, sure, whatever, yeah, I'll go. And the speaker was Don Miguel Ruiz. And
Are you
he was
serious? Oh my
yeah, he was
God.
talking about his book that he just published called The Four Agreements.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
so that was incredible, and so different from my like Catholic upbringing.
Right. Right.
Um, and so I was like, whoa, there's another path, there's another way. And so this really resonated. And then I went back and I saw like Neil Donald Walsh give a talk at the same venue, and I just couldn't stop.
So you became a seeker.
Right, yeah.
What you're seeking is seeking you, right? So
Oh
those
yeah.
books are coming, and speaker
They did.
opportunities,
They
and
came exactly at the right time. I remember, I was at like a Barnes and Noble one time, and I was like looking through it, and this one just like was sticking out a little bit, and it was, the Eckhart Tolle book, Power of Now.
yeah.
Yes. So yes, that was this other path. And so, after I'd left my big company geology job, I had several people all at once kind of asking me, oh, you're a geologist. Do you know where I can find crystals? Do you know where I can find crystals? Independent people, lots of
Mhm.
them asking me the same question. And for a long time, in my life, I've been sourcing things locally from farmers markets in terms of food, and really put a lot of emphasis on where does our clothing come from? Where does our this come from? Where does our that come from? And so I was kind of curious. I got really curious about it in terms of, crystals and minerals, knowing that people are using them for spiritual tools. And so I consulted, what I heard somebody say, the Oracle Google. So I consulted the Oracle Google. And
Okay.
I found out that a lot of the crystals on the market
Mm.
are,
Not ethically sourced.
yes, unethically sourced. I mean, I read an article, I think it's in New Republic, it's published online, maybe 2018, and it was an account of rose quartz mining in Madagascar. And the reporter cited that there's like 85,000 child laborers that are sourcing these crystals. And
Wow. So it's like slavery.
none of it made sense to me. And so, all the while, these things are coming at me. And so my inner knowing is like, oh, girl, you can do something about this.
Right. Right.
And so,
So what year did you start Truth Minerals?
I started, the website opened at the beginning of 2021. So January 1st, 2021.
Perfect. And it's truthminerals.com.
Truthminerals.com. Yep. And it's been amazing, and like you said, when things just kind of come to you or pop out at you, things that you're seeking are really seeking you.
Yes.
I can't even describe it better, the whole process. I mean, people just come up. I don't even know
The
how
right people, right?
the connections. Yes, the right
Like the people who are just the people that you've met, who you've gone on digs with, and who
Yes.
source these, ethically source these crystals for you, and gems and minerals. I mean, you're starting to make some really powerful connections.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can show us like what an unprocessed piece
Yeah,
looks like.
yeah. So there's that piece, right? So people are just coming up. So everything, well, like 98% of what I've sourced so far for truth minerals comes from the US. There's like a little bit from Canada, but it's by these American guys. And that's how at this time I know that it's ethically sourced, because I am paying the guys that dug it out of the ground, and they do it because they love it. They do it because they want to. They do it because they are called to do it.
They're passionate and their energy is kind of infused in that process, don't you
Yeah.
think?
Yes. Like one of my favorite diggers, I've told you about him, Wendy, but
Is it Carl?
yes, Carl. I've told you. He's 74. He still goes digging. He lives in Colorado. He just was called to leave Florida and go to Colorado to be in the mountains and dig crystals. And so for 40 years,
What? 40 years?
that's what he's been doing. And he goes and digs everything by hand. He's got several mining claims throughout the state. And, you know, he's asked to consult for other people. He's like the OG. He's like the OG of Colorado crystal digging. And
Wow.
it's my honor to be able to know him and source
Be mentored by him too, right?
right, and to bring some of the beautiful things that he's found out to the world, you know.
Right.
So yeah, so there's a few things. Well, this is one of his pieces right now. You can see
So
this
cool.
blue is called Amazonite.
Mm-hmm.
It's a type of feldspar, and then these little black ones are smoky quartz crystals. This is one of the pieces that Carl has found. And in addition to, you know, showing these things to people in the world, part of what my mission is as a geologist, and I feel is my responsibility, is to explain and share what is the process, right? A lot of people don't know.
Right.
You know, this did not come out of the ground looking like this.
Right.
For example, so, you know, you don't just necessarily wash it off with soap and then it comes out. There's a whole process. Like this one, for example, this is a smoky quartz crystal from Colorado. And you see all this reddish stuff and brownish stuff
Is
on
that
it.
like dirt embedded into it, or?
No, these are other minerals that have grown on the surface.
Okay.
So this is hematite and goethite. These are all iron minerals. So this crystal formed almost 2 billion years ago, over 1 billion years ago.
Wow.
Area. Yeah, it was old stuff. So it's been sitting down under the ground for a really long time, and it's had a chance for other minerals to grow on
Do you
top of it.
carbon date it? Like, how do you know how old it is?
They've carbon dated the source rock, yeah, for sure. Well, carbon date, you can test zircons. There's all kinds of ways you can date the age of rocks. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And so when it gets cleaned up, here's one that's cleaned up. So all the material's been removed. And it's not just washing in water.
Does it take a long time to get it to that point?
It sometimes takes a long time. So the guys that, Carl, for example, when he cleans, and many of the guys that small shops, they try to use the least toxic things. So they'll use iron out, which, you know, you can use different acids.
Are they soaking it in something?
Yeah. So they'll soak it in a solution and it stays there for several days, and then that's removed. So when you buy buy a crystal from overseas, there's a whole process that you probably don't even know about. And, you know, perhaps it's changed a lot of hands. So just, you know, I feel it's my responsibility to kind of help out and make people aware of the process and what goes on.
Well, I also love that everything is so ethically sourced. Like you have a lot of integrity in what you put out there through Truth Minerals. You also have an Instagram. I love your Instagram. And a newsletter. So
yes. Yeah, and we can talk about that later too. But yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, you know, your awareness of the impacts to humans, animals, and the planet of these minerals and what we're doing with them. I know a lot of them have healing properties. A lot.
everything is so connected. I mean, we're connected to the earth. We're connected to everything in our field. You know this, Wendy, energetically on a deeper level.
Yeah.
You know, there's this underlying force, call it the universe, consciousness, God, love, energy, and we're all connected. So when we make choices, when we make business decisions, where it's a fair deal, where we know that the impact to the planet is minimal, where there's no humans being harmed or
abused, right?
Yes, it's a consciousness, and it's like a form of conscious consumerism where we lift everyone up with these choices. We're fortunate that we do have choices. There's a lot of options for where you buy anything. Crystal.
Well, I think a lot of people don't even have an awareness that some of these things that they're purchasing were dug up by child labor or supported the Taliban. I saw that.
Right. So this beautiful mineral, lapis lazuli, most commonly comes out of, I don't have an example to show you, otherwise I would. It's really like this deep blue. It's beautiful, beautiful. And it's got pyrite in it, like you see little bits of pyrite in it. Yeah, that is pretty much every time you buy lapis, you're funding the Taliban. And so thank you, Wendy, for inviting me on your podcast so that we can help make people aware.
We want to educate people, right?
So a lot of people don't, and that's okay. What did Maya Angelou say? Something about you do your best, and then when you know better, you do better. Right. So that's all we can do, right? So thank you, Wendy, for having me on so that I can
of course
share this. We can share this message and make people aware.
Now, you shared some talking points with me, and one of them was how to tap into your internal guidance system. That's such an important topic.
It is.
Because we're being guided all the time.
We are so being guided all the time. It's just a matter of listening, right? Yeah. And it's a matter of, like you always say, being in alignment. Yes. And when you're in alignment, it's about checking in, right? So you kind of have to slow down. But all of us are so busy, doing what we do and living our lives. And I guess I wanted to share, recently I was in Colorado sourcing some crystals, and one of my friends, I really wanted to go digging with him. And so I just had to kind of check in, because all the plans changed. The people that were supposed to come with us kind of bailed, and it would just be my friend, actually Carl, who I would love to dig with, and then my two little kids. And one of them was starting to not feel so good. And so it was like this tough decision. And I was just like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And so what I did was, check in, like probably similar to what you do when it comes to making any decision. Right. So I sat down, I found a quiet place, I closed the door. I may have grabbed like a quartz crystal or something, clear quartz to, help with clarity, and just sat down, closed my eyes, and got into a space, like a quiet space where my mind was a little bit silent. And I sort of imagined these two scenarios. One scenario, I go digging, and then I sat and I just let my body feel how it felt. And then I imagined the other scenario, which was I don't on that particular day, and I go do something else. And it was super clear, like what I was doing. I mean, as soon as I imagined it, one of the options, like my shoulders tensed up and I felt my whole body, it just felt like
resistance, right? You feel resistance.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we have to listen to. And every decision, we can tap into our inner guidance, and it doesn't have to be a big decision. It can just be.
Here's the thing that always surprises me. People who have that knowing will tap in and then still not honor what they're getting, right? They're still like, but I'm still going to do it. And then when they do that, shit happens.
Yeah. 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 Guilty. Guilty.
I think all of us have done that before, but I think as you go further, you continually are reminded through experience. Experience is our greatest teacher.
Right.
Right?
Yes. Yes. And we're constantly evolving. Yes, of course.
100%.
All of us have done that, where we listen and we're like, well, my internal guidance system says I'm supposed to do this, but I really want to do that.
We have to be so careful about our ego mind.
Right.
Because our ego mind is always trying to trump our inner soul knowing. But it really should be the opposite. Our heart and our inner knowing and our soul should always be leading the way. Because the ego mind has an agenda. The ego mind has judgment. The ego mind has wounds that it's trying to compensate for in our decisions, right? It has judgment. There's so many things that aren't supporting us on our journey if we're only tuned into that ego.
Yeah. And you could tell right away. I mean, you could tell right away.
I can tell observing it. Like if I'm observing people making choices, I'm like, that's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. And they end up, creating chaos or drama, or I'm like, I saw that coming.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's really important. And one thing that's really helped me to, tap in and stay in and like remember to do that throughout the day is like a morning practice. And I think you have one of your own, Wendy, right?
I think we all have. I think people like us who are on a journey back to ourselves, you can call it a spiritual path. I don't even know if it's a spiritual path, but it is a noble and sacred path.
Yes.
And back to our higher self, our authentic self, our multidimensional being and selves at source, I think every human is on that, walking that path, whether they're consciously or unconsciously walking it. And for those of us who are consciously walking it, we have tools that support our journey, right?
Yes.
So what does that look like for you?
Well, I have 3 kids, and so I have to be very deliberate about starting my day, right? And so it is so important to me that I have time to tap in. So, I have to wake up before everyone else in my house. I choose to wake up before everyone in my house, and I love it. So for me, it's meditation, it's journaling, it's a nice cup of coffee, and just having that space and time, not waking up and rushing. On the days that I wake up and I'm like, oh, I gotta get my kids ready, gotta do this, I forget. And then I
feel more grounded when you're in that practice space.
Yes, for sure. So when I wake up, and a lot of times when I do my meditation, I'll, hold a certain crystal, and it's kind of like, which one is speaking to me, right? I'll just kind of hold it in my hand. I'll start the day. I'll set an intention for the day. And that's huge. And then as I go through the day, later on, when these things come up, I'm able to sort of recalibrate myself more easily and kind of come back and make more aligned choices. And on the days that I don't, which are fewer and fewer as I get older,
Right.
I'm, it's hard to kind of come back. So for me, starting off the day that way is the key.
The solid foundation for you.
Yeah.
And do you notice too, because you're in a more aligned place, your energy towards the kids is more tolerant and patient.
Yes.
Instead of right?
Right.
When I was raising my kids, I wasn't in that space. I was very unconscious in my parenting and my being. So I was that person who just hit the ground running, and it was just hectic and exhausting and busy for years, It was a long time before I could exhale. Like when they went to college, then I was like, oh, This is great. I started to reconnect to myself.
Nice.
I mean, eventually I got there. I wish I had gotten there sooner, but everything unfolds in perfect time, and we all have our own soul contracts and agreements to play out. And our soul contracts were for them to have the environment with me and for us to trigger each other in that environment for our growth.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is unfolding perfectly, even if it seems chaotic.
Yes, I agree with you. And
How
yes.
old are your children?
Okay, so my oldest is 17, and then my middle son is 8, and my little one is 5. And I've been there too, Wendy, when my oldest was like 2 or something. I certainly wasn't in the same place of alignment that I am now.
Right.
And so, yeah, we had a lot of those days where it was like, hustle, get up, let's go, let's go.
Let's get you to preschool. Let's go.
Right, exactly. You gotta go to daycare because I gotta go to work.
Right.
Right. But I mean, it's just, we're always evolving and we're always growing, and it's beautiful, really.
What's your vision for Truth Minerals? What's your dream? I'd like you to speak it because I think that's important.
I think the mission for Truth Minerals, my vision is to educate, inspire, uplift others. I just really want to provide a place where, a community where people can come to learn about these crystals, and really continue to do business with people, the small people that are, doing things right, that are mining things correctly, and showcase that.
Well, they have integrity in their work, right?
Yes, and to bring awareness of that. And just as reach as many people as are looking for this source of crystals and for these messages.
I love it. I love also that you're doing public speaking. I know you spoke at the Clear Lake Gem and Mineral Society. Yeah. And I love that you're able to incorporate education with, I think you're unique in that you have this geology background. So a lot of people who sell crystals have a spiritual background, but they don't really have the geology background.
It's so weird, Wendy. When I first started doing this, I really felt that in this space, there's like 2 tranches. You can, as far as consumers and, sellers or whatever, you're either a mineral collector, which is more like rooted in science. And you tend to sort of collect mineral specimens like baseball cards, or you're into the metaphysical side. And I mean, I kept hearing this and I was like, why do they have to be separate?
Why can't you?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
which is what you're doing, which is what I love.
They're not separate. I mean, science is beautiful. And I love science because, we get to ask these questions, we get to observe. This is the thing I learned, in all my education as a scientist and work. It's like, you're always asking questions, you're always observing the world around you. You don't jump to conclusions right away. And so in a way, there's like this open-mindedness. And I think that, as a scientist, and most scientists, we know that science can only go so far. You can only get so far with science. The tools can only allow you to observe, a certain portion of our physical reality and non-physical reality, like actually not much of that at all. And I think we all know that behind the science, or at least I know, and I want everyone else to know, is something greater. We can observe, we can talk, we can write scientific papers, but at the end of the day, a seed is still going to sprout into a plant, and we can't make it do that. It just does it. There are certain species of like earthworms or something, which is like a super simple form of life. And you cut it in half and it just grows the other half back. There's nothing that any of us did. There's just this
it's organic unfolding, right?
Yeah. And it's like, it's way more than what we can see and feel and touch.
Or rationalize, right?
Yeah, or rationalize. So, what I love about crystals really is that, we can observe, we can talk about the properties. We can talk about, like this one has 6 sides. We can describe it. It's a pyramid, prismatic, hexagonal prismatic. And this one is called Tessin habit because it kind of doesn't have a big point at the top like this one. You see that one has a point? We can describe all of these things and give them names, but at the end of the day, it's a freaking miracle that underneath the ground, almost 2 billion years ago,
Right.
molecules of silica and oxygen came together and made this perfect arrangement.
It's incredible.
So that's what I want to share.
So can people buy direct from you?
Yes. People can buy direct on the website. I've always got new collections, coming up once they sell. And I send out a monthly newsletter with, kind of some of the things that we're talking about here, information about the minerals, about how they grew, where they came from, and stories about the people that dig them and, things like that.
How do your kids respond to this? Do they love going on these exploration camping trips where they dig minerals? Or are they like, I'm not interested and you're forcing me? Because you have to hike kind of far sometimes for them to get to the place.
Well, again, I just have to go back to my intuition, and I know when they're ready to be challenged, and I know when something is too much, like as a mother. And
Right.
so, no, for the most part, they love it. And I think I've been also really conscious about this, and I want to say to any other, mothers that are listening, we don't have to kind of fall into this box, right? We don't have to fit into a mold, and it has to be a certain type of job. It has to be a 9 to 5. It has to be this. What I really am also doing here with Truth Minerals, I'm very deliberate about trying to design a life around my family.
Mm-hmm.
Not one that's like siloed and separate, where like kids are here, work is here.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to like intermingle a bit.
Like integrate.
Yes, integrate.
Integrative and balanced.
Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times when we plan family vacations, I've kind of been dragging them around to like look at outcrops and do geology field trips anyway for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And so now as I do it, it's just like, okay, we're going on this family trip. While we're here, let's go to this mine. Let's talk to this person. Let's go, take some pictures of this so that we can, so that I can share that with interested people. So yeah.
I'm just wondering how many suitcases of rocks and minerals you've hauled around back home from wherever you go.
Yeah. So
that's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weight. So road trips are good. I actually have a trailer now, like a big trailer to pull behind. So this most recent trip, I got thousands of pounds of rose quartz, and this rose quartz is all from South Dakota. It's beautiful pink. And I'm really excited to start getting it inventoried and up on the website soon. But yes, in terms of suitcases, I have to tell you a funny story. So I was flying back from Denver one time. I was there, for my consulting work. And I was like, well, while I'm here, I'm going to go and bring an empty suitcase. And so I had one bag and I was taking it in the check-in and, checking the luggage, and it was filled up with mineral specimens. And one of them was probably this big. And so I go through, I put the bag on the scanner, and everybody's like, oh, what is this? All the security people are just like, oh my gosh, what is it? And they all kind of come over. And the guy was like, I don't know. It might be like a boulder. I don't really know. And they open it up, and I've got it all carefully wrapped, and they dig it out, and they're like, oh, okay, you can go now. They're like, just a crystal.
So like, I'm a geologist. Here's my card.
Right.
I'm a card carrying geologist.
Don't worry. I'm a geologist. It's fine.
These won't explode on the plane.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you're doing this work. I think really times are changing right now.
Yeah.
The energies are changing on the planet. I think healing is changing. And I feel like, crystals are going to be a big part of it in a different way, in a more multidimensional way, not in the old, I'm doing some sort of ceremony or I really feel like there's a
What do you mean,
consciousness.
Wendy? Tell me more.
I just feel like there's a consciousness awakening in the crystals as we go higher dimensionally. And that intelligence, that higher intelligence is going to come forward and people will be working with crystals in a different way. That's what I mean.
Well, I can't wait to see it, and I'll be around for it.
I mean, I think that's why you're here,
Yeah.
is to provide these very high vibrational and very pure, ethically sourced offerings to people.
I agree.
Right? I'm so glad you're doing the work that you do.
Thank you, Wendy. And I'm so glad you're doing the work that you do.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, sharing, all these beautiful souls, like giving us all a chance to talk on your podcast.
Yeah, I'm like a storyteller, we tell stories and we get people to maybe expand their consciousness a little bit or hear something that they didn't know about or learn something about themselves or really get inspired to maybe make more ethically you know
Yes.
sourced decisions when it comes to products that they're purchasing or whatever it is. I think with awareness and expanded consciousness we can do better, right?
We can do better.
So
We can do better. Yes, we are doing better. And I think it's all of us as a community, we all share, like each of us have like these natural gifts and talents and certain loves. And like for me, it's always been nature and crystals and rocks and minerals. And, talking with people, I think you're really good at
thank you.
sensing the energy in others. And we all have these gifts. And I think in a way, we really are all working together.
Absolutely. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind.
We're all sort of like linking arms and we're all rising together.
And I know you're thinking about doing wholesale.
Oh, yes.
So if people who are watching this have a gift shop,
right,
a spiritual type of community or center or store, reach out to Shalina on her website.
Reach out to me, Shalina, SHALINA at truthminerals.com. I do wholesale. I have quite a bit of US material and I'll do wholesale and you can resell it. I've also got larger pieces if you're looking for something special for your home, like if you do feng shui or if you're a feng shui practitioner, you can purchase some of these things then to resell to your clients or whatever. So yes, ask me about wholesale. That's a direction that I want to go to. I know I've shared all the.
No, I think people need to know that because you can ship anywhere. So
yes, I think
good for people to be aware of it. Well, Shalina, thank you so much for being a guest with me today.
Thank you, Wendy. Is there anything else we wanted to talk about? Let's see. I guess I do want to let your listeners know, if you are interested in subscribing to my newsletter and learning a little bit more, or just checking out the website, when you first go to it, truthminerals.com, there's a pop-up box that comes up and it says, you can be an insider, and it asks for your first name and email address. And that's how you subscribe to the email newsletter. And once you do that, you'll also get a 20% off coupon that you can use for anything. So awesome. Yeah. And then another thing that I want to, share, I think for all of us, giving back is really important too. And so every purchase from Truth Minerals, a portion of our profits go back to organizations that help people get back to nature, connect with the earth. It's so healing. I have a friend that has an animal rescue, and she has like equine meditations, and it's just a very beautiful organization. And that's one of the organizations that we love to sponsor.
Awesome. I
So
did not know that. So thank you for sharing.
yeah, giving back is kind of huge.
Your integrity is so amazing. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thanks for
Oh,
being in my life. I love you so much.
Oh, you too. Thank you for everything that you're teaching all of us, and the wisdom that you're sharing. And
thank you. You know, I think everybody has a story, and I think we can learn from each other. I think we're all students and we're all teachers, you know?
yes.
There's so much that I don't know. Like, I'm reminded daily that I don't know what I don't know. So I'm perpetually learning myself, you know. My journey is eternal, and sometimes it's hard. The spiritual journey is not easy. It's hard, you know, confronting ourselves. But I think it helps to share stories of people who are finding their courage to step into their purpose and their lane and their truth, whether they are supported by the people around them or not. Because if you're feeling an internal call, that's happening for a reason, and it's happening right now for a reason.
Yes.
And I feel like
about listening.
Yeah, if you don't answer it,
you have to act.
If you don't act on it, if you don't answer that call because of fear, there are many people who won't benefit from your gifts.
That's true. That's
and
true.
So even when I'm feeling unsure, or I'm going out of my comfort zone, I'm going to keep pushing myself, because
that's how you grow.
Yeah, that's how you grow. And if you don't put yourself outside of your comfort zone, maybe you're not reaching the audience you're supposed to reach, or doing the work you're supposed to do.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you look at that in nature, right? You see insects that outgrow their exoskeletons. They got to upgrade. It's
got to upgrade. Exactly.
You know,
but it requires faith in yourself. It requires confidence. It requires courage. And you have to be willing to step into your power and knowing and go forward, whether people are supporting you or not.
Yes.
You have to be so committed to your path and yourself that you choose you and follow that, because the world needs you right now.
Yes.
You know,
every one of us.
Every one of us.
And I mean, especially like all of your listeners, all of you have special gifts.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And a lot of people aren't even aware of it. You know, they're not even consciously aware of how they impact people around them or what their gifts are. But
I bet most of your listeners know.
I do have a lot of conscious listeners, I will say.
Yeah.
But anyway, Shalina, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for having me.
Great having you. And to my audience, I hope you have a beautiful day. Love yourselves, be kind to each other, and find the courage to step forward. You know, the world needs you all right now. So we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.